Welcome to the Hyper Voice. I am your host, Stephen Morioka, and today I am joined by Alex Underhill.
Alola, Stephen.
Alola. And also joining us today is our 2017 Latin America International Champion, Ashton Cox.
Hey, nice to be here.
Hey, Ashton, and congratulations again on the big win over in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Thank you.
All right, so I think for this episode, we're just going to start off by talking about the Latin America International because I don't think we've done an episode post or after that event. Ashton, tell us about just your experience down in Brazil. Maybe talk about your flight, if anything interesting happened there. Talk about the experience in Sao Paulo, playing in that tournament against, in a mini Worlds again. And maybe just in terms of the structure and your win, any highlights you have?
Well, the event was very cool just to start off with. I think that the best part of the event was definitely the opening ceremony. I'm not sure what you all have seen of that, but it was wonderful. And they put together this performance with drums and lights, and it was kind of a taste of what the culture in Sao Paulo was like. And I thought it was a really cool addition to the whole tournament, rather than it just being more about Pokemon, but it was about the area. And so I thought that was really awesome, and I hope that we can do something like that maybe for the U.S. Internationals, because it was just so phenomenal. But besides that, the area in Brazil was very nice. The venue was pretty big. It looked like a football stadium, which I thought was pretty funny. And besides that, the hotel was nice, and all of the people that I met who were from the area were also very nice. So I'd say that overall, the event was wonderful, and it's definitely my new standard for any tournament I go to.
So would you say this current tournament, like the feel there compared to like that of going to Worlds?
Yeah, it felt like going to Worlds because anyone who's been to Worlds knows that they do this big opening ceremony with the video and the lights and the sounds and all that stuff. And it sort of overwhelms you with how cool it really is to be there. And they made me feel like that at an international, which I thought was really cool. And especially seeing all the people who also got paid to go there from around the world, that definitely made it feel like Worlds too.
Very cool. And I think another thing people probably want to hear about, maybe a little more in detail, is how I've been hearing and seeing this all over the place, that there's a specific fruit tied to this victory in some way. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the pineapple story?
Yeah. So basically, when we got to Brazil, we got there, I think it was Tuesday morning, and obviously tournament did not start until Friday, and check-in was not until the night before, but we needed something to do, so we decided to go to this fruit market that they had down a few blocks away. And when we got there, we saw all these crazy vendors, but we saw this really flashy fruit stand, and I was like, well, we know fruit, so we decided to go over there. And we met this really, really nice guy, but he didn't speak any English, so communicating with him was pretty hard. But we did manage to convey that we were at a Pokemon tournament, and most people who you try to tell you're a competitive Pokemon player, they just kind of look at you weird. But he thought it was really cool. And we decided that we'd buy some fruit just to be nice, even though it all looked really weird. But we bought some anyways. And right before we left, he was motioning for me to come over to see something, and I didn't know really what it was. But he brought me over to this one place at his stand, and he tried to say something that I'm assuming was like, take one. And I was like, I don't want to take fruit from this guy. I don't want to just like take something. It's not really like a gift that I should be taking. But I kind of was just like, I don't really know what you want me to do. And he said, here, pineapple. And I was like, okay, man, I'll take your pineapple. So I thought to myself, I was like, all right, if I make finals, I'm going to have this pineapple with me. And he told me that it was good luck. And I was like, okay, man, whatever you say. And so I had that pineapple sitting with the rest of the fruit in our hotel room, and I thought nothing of it until after I won my top 4 match, I ran to my room as fast as I could to grab that pineapple because I knew that I knew that I would need it.
Wow.
So that's basically that story.
All right, and it really did come in handy going back for the pineapple. I guess it really lived up to what you had thought it might have been needed for. You know, you said, like, if I make it to finals, I'm going to need this pineapple. You went and got it, and it turned out successful.
Yeah, it was super weird. I didn't think it would actually mean anything. And maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but it was there for me.
It really feels like just a blessing from the locals for you. Just, having that nice interaction with the vendor there, and, you just really thinking about this special... Do you still have that pineapple anywhere?
No, sadly, I really wish I could have brought it back to America or done something with it, but I could not bring it through the customs back to the United States, sadly.
Makes sense. Okay.
So we actually had to eat it, and I took a video of it, but I'm yet to do anything with that yet. But maybe there'll be something. Maybe there'll be something in the future with that.
Well, at least the pineapple's with you, in spirit or, in your digestive tracts or however you want to talk about it that way.
Yes.
A part of it's still with you.
Yeah, I felt like if I ate it, the luck would still be with me. As long as I thought of it, I would still have a part of it with me somehow.
Sentimental.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear about the pineapple story. I've been very curious about that. But let's talk a little bit more about the tournament. So you guys had your typical day one of Swiss with best of 3, play 8 rounds, I think.
Yeah, it was 8 rounds, which I do definitely prefer 9 rounds, but 8 rounds was what they decided on.
So you guys did that, and for these internationals, typically we've been seeing from the past 2. They do a day 2 Swiss where all players at least X and 2 advance to cut, or the day 2 Swiss. Sorry, but something different happened in this one. You want to explain what happened here?
Yeah. So as you can see, if you look at the any summary of the event, you'll see that there were 186 masters, which is a pretty small number, especially for an international. Even for some regionals have been bigger than that. But with those numbers, we sadly did not hit enough for 9 rounds, but no one expected that when they announced how the structure of the tournament would be, they said that we would not be having a day 2 Swiss. And that was pretty weird in itself, but then especially to cut to a top 8 and not even a top 16 after that, I feel like that really limited the potential of more players winning the event, because I'm sure, especially with like the whole me and Gavin situation, we were both 6-1, one of us just wasn't going to make cut because of that. And I felt like that kind of not really ruined the top cut of the tournament, but it really hindered the potential that the top cut had to be even better.
When was this announcement made? How soon did you guys know there was only going to be a straight top 8 cut?
I know that when we were sitting down for player meeting, obviously it was all in Portuguese, so I wasn't really sure what was going on. But I heard like people being surprised, so I was asking around at what had happened, and then I heard that there was not going to be the day 2, and I was really confused by that because I assumed that no day 2 meant no day 3, but apparently that's not the case. But it was before round 1, so at least it wasn't during the tournament or somewhere else.
Yeah, that could have been very shocking if the whole tournament had just been played out in one day.
Oh yeah, that would have been really interesting.
See, I'd always wondered whether this was a decision made by a TO or upper management, but it seems like this was really just tied to attendance.
Yeah, I think it was mostly tied to attendance. I feel personally that the TO should be able to override, especially if there's like, I personally feel like there was a reason to do a day 2 Swiss, but maybe there wasn't. Maybe that's just me. But I do feel like a TO could have stepped in and done something, but I don't really know. But I think that it was based on solely on attendance, not because someone thought that having no day 2 would be a good idea.
Right, I can definitely see that. I feel like, I guess if it is tied to attendance, then I suppose if it's in the rules, then they did the right thing maybe by going to top 8 cut. I think a better option though was potentially, at least the previous internationals had all X2s advance to the next stage of the tournament. At the very least, they could have had all the X2s go into this bracket. But
Yeah.
you know, they always really want those clean brackets now, either top 8 or top 16. They don't seem to be they don't really seem to care about that X2 factor for, I guess, in general right now, because the last time we had that was Worlds, and I don't even know if we're going to get that this year. It seems like for the North American International, which we'll talk about later, there's also not going to be, you know, just an X2 cut after day 2 Swiss, assuming we get that too, with the attendance.
Yeah, I feel. Oh, what was I going to say? My train of thought just totally derailed. I was going to say another thing that we thought after the first day was maybe they have something else going on during the second day. You know, that hinders them from having space or time to hold the second day with the X2s. But we noticed that there really wasn't anything going on. So we thought that it would have been appropriate to do like an X2 cut, even if it wasn't Swiss. Maybe it was like the elimination down to a top 16 or something like that they did at Worlds. But it definitely, I feel like the TOs definitely could have done something. But I'm not going to say I'm upset that they didn't, but I feel like they could have definitely stepped in and done something there to maybe have a day 2 or something along those lines.
Were you able to go to the venue at all on day 2, or was it kind of like shut down? I was just curious. Was TCG going on that day, or?
Yeah, well, the TCG Masters did have a day 2, and
okay, so it was still open.
Yeah, and the juniors and seniors were going on during day 2. Well, the quote unquote day 2.
Yes,
but they were definitely there, and they were only taking up about 50% of the venue with that, because you know the juniors and seniors had a player cap of 32 and 16, so that was 48 people, or not 48. It's 48. Yeah, so they had 48 younger competitors, and then some massive TCG Masters were in day 2, and then I think they had a mid-season or something going on. I didn't play in it because I was busy, but.
Okay. So what did you do for that second day? I know this is kind of backing out of the tournament, but I'm just kind of curious. What did you do? Because you were, I guess this is still tournament related, because what you had made it through the Swiss of day 1, and you knew you were going to be playing in the top cut, but you had a whole day between Swiss and top cut to prepare. What was that like? Because it's not something that's really happened in any other tournament, I'm sure.
Honestly, it was actually pretty nice, because there was a lot of stress going into the going into the top 8. You knew who you were playing a lot of the time in advance. You knew the matchup, and you had a whole 24 hours to prepare yourself. And it was overwhelming and nice at the same time, because you would think that a lot of time to practice the matchup or whatnot would help you a lot, but it kind of made me overthink things a lot. But it was overall nice to have that extra time to just kind of relax. I know that a lot of people who were not in day 2 or day 3 got to go sightseeing and whatnot, and well, I wanted to do that. I decided it'd be better to just stay in the hotel room and rest, because I wanted to win,
Yeah, put all your effort into the tournament.
Yeah.
Speaking of the tournament, why don't we talk about the top 8 cut here and some of the players here. There are 3 things I want to point out. You have William Tansley and Tommy Coolin making yet another appearance in the top cut of an international. I think this would be Tommy's 3rd. William's 2nd. Is there anyone else a repeat here?
No. I was thinking Marcus for a second, but I think he got top 16 in Australia.
Yeah, that sounds right. But them repeat performances here or repeat performances and appearances in the top cut of an international. Very big accomplishments there. Tommy's still using a double ducks team featuring Buzzwole, but Ashton, why don't we talk about some of your top cut matches? If you can pick out highlights, and your team, you can quickly just list your 6 members, but you are very much known for using uncommon and unusual choices in your Pokemon and your teams. So, I guess comparatively to years past, on this specific team, what is your most unusual either Pokemon, item, move choice, or EV spread from this team?
So the team was Tapu Lele, Pheromosa, the Lilligant Torkoal, and Mimikyu Snorlax. And I think the weirdest Pokemon I had on there was actually the Pheromosa, as weird as Pheromosa being one of the more used Pokemon on the team, strange as that is to say, it was the weirdest because in the team building process, I had a bunch of Pokemon over that Pheromosa slot, and then one day I was just watching Aaron Zhang's YouTube, and I saw him using that Poisonium Pheromosa, and I thought that was the dumbest thing, but then I took a second, and I considered it, and I was like, wait a second, that actually works, and then I put it on my team, and it ended up being the Poisonium Z Pheromosa with Poison Jab, High Jump Kick, Ice Beam, Protect, and I feel like that's just not super weird, but just very uncommon.
I definitely was like caught off guard by Poisonium Pheromosa. Just, it took me a bit to understand when I saw it on your team. Like, what exactly is this going for? What is it trying to accomplish that makes it better than like Phytonium Z or something like that? But obviously, with all the fairy type Pokemon, it can definitely have some use.
Yeah, and it's not a lot of people who run. The main thing I wanted to KO was Tapu Fini, but a lot of people who run Tapu Fini obviously run Arcanine or something for Intimidate, and that made it a little lackluster because it couldn't even really get the KOs that I needed to. It was more of a people would feel very threatened by it, and sometimes it would get KOs here and there, but it would usually be giving me a free switch into something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and getting off a good amount of damage onto that Fini regardless.
Yeah.
So, how did your matches go in the top 8 cut?
So in top 8, in the first round of top 8, I was versus Marcus, and I'm sure everybody knows Marcus, so I don't need to explain that. But the matchup going into it, I thought he has nothing for Sun, and I assumed that he would know that he didn't have much for Sun, so he must know his outs to Sun. So I worried myself by thinking he had outs to Sun, and nothing against Marcus, but he really had no outs to Sun. So that was pretty simple. I mean, the matchup was pretty simple. Obviously, playing against Marcus, it was a very good game, and he was very much so still in it, even though I had a very good matchup. But it was a fairly simple matchup that I could just flowchart through and make sure I didn't screw up too bad. I had to hit one Sleep Powder, I think, to win the game, but that's still pretty good in my favor.
I think he did come out and say, like, after you had beaten him on Twitter, he said, like, I had nothing for Sun or something like that. So
yeah.
he was pretty aware that it was going to be tough for him. And it seems like you played it well. Like you said, he did all that he could, but the matchup was in your favor and you played it well. So moving on to top 4.
And in the top 4, I honestly thought I was going to be playing Ian because it was Ian versus Carlos, the 4th and 5th. And Ian said he had a really good matchup, and I didn't really know either of their teams, so I just assumed I'd be playing Ian. And as you know, he had that Smeargle, so our match was going to be just putting stuff to sleep and hoping. But I'm glad that he did not win because of that, but sad because, USA. But I ended up playing Carlos, and his team looks like something you would have seen earlier in the season, and I thought that I would have a really easy time against it, just because it looked like he also didn't have anything for Sun. But he ended up having Roar Arcanine. So I basically threw away game 1 just because I led. I led Mimikyu because I thought he had nothing to stop me from Trick Rooming, and he roared me. So I basically gave him game 1. And then Sun Mode got me game 2 pretty easily. But then game 3 was really interesting because I got the end game down to his Snorlax, which game 3 I found out he did not have any moves that were not normal type, so he had no way to hit Mimikyu, which even though that sounds like Mimikyu wins there, if it really went down to it, he would win because of Recycle and like timer or stalling my moves and whatnot. But I knew he had no way to hit Mimikyu. So, when it came down to it, the end game, game 3, I had Mimikyu, Lilligant, Torkoal versus that Snorlax. And let me tell you, this battle went on 25 turns.
Wow.
Just me trying to get the right positioning and not lose all of my Pokemon in the process. But I ended up pulling that one out barely.
Yeah, so I'm guessing you were trying to avoid that Mimikyu Snorlax endgame because you were worried about being PP stalled and running out of attacks and then just losing on, yeah, like you said, timer or struggling. So
Yeah.
you had to play it very carefully in the end and still managed to take it, though, despite that kind of scary endgame.
Yeah, it was made a little bit easier by at the end of the game, I put him to sleep one more time, and I was just hoping that he woke up and killed Lilligant so I could get Torkoal in. But he ended up sleeping. He got a 3-turn sleep, so I got to fire off 3 Leaf Storms and 3 Play Roughs, and it ended up killing him from where he was.
Okay,
and
okay.
It just ended it sooner because that game could have gone on for 25, if not more, turns. Definitely.
Yeah, that does sound really nerve-wracking, like knowing you have that 3-1 advantage, and yet it could still be taken away from you.
Yeah, that definitely could have gone either way, depending on what happened. What happened in what turn could have gone anyway.
And so then you made it on to the finals, and did you know who you were going to be playing, or not really beforehand? I mean, obviously you knew like when going to the match, but did you know before you had to, sprint back to your hotel room and grab the pineapple and such like that?
Well, actually, after my top 4 match, the match between Gabriel and Javier was still going on stream because Gabriel was running the Wolf-esque team, which was very slow-paced, and Javier's outs were his things like Arcanine and Porygon, so that game was taking quite a long time. But I got to... The main TO told me that I had about an hour and a half before I had to be back, which I thought was crazy. So when I went back to my hotel room, I was talking to my friends, and they were watching the stream, helping me get information from it. And I didn't get to watch any of it myself, and I didn't even get to know that much from what they had told me. But I did not know who I was facing until probably about 30 minutes before I had to go up and play my match.
Okay. So not a whole lot of time to mentally prepare.
Yeah, not much preparation time, but I guess by that 30-minute mark before the finals, you knew you were going to end up playing Javier. And I think earlier I mentioned there are 3 things I wanted to point out from Cut, and I think I only said 2. The third one here is that Latin America did not defend their international, and by that point in finals, both Brazil and Peru would have been knocked out. So either Europe or the USA would have won that. So you stole that away from them, both of you guys. But anyway, moving on.
Yeah, I was gonna say I do feel bad that I did steal the title, but yeah, win's a win. I'll take it.
No need to feel
bad.
Of
course. Yeah. Of course.
But yeah, you went into finals against Javier, and you said you had like about 30 minutes beforehand knowing who you were going to be playing. But how did you feel about the matchup? Like, did you know his team, or were you kind of like in the dark on what you were going to be facing against?
I didn't know too much about his moves and items. All I knew was that it was Choice Scarf Tapu Lele, which is definitely good information to have against for any team. Knowing that the Lele's Choice Scarf definitely helps. But going into the match, I was actually talking to Tommy about a specific lead that I had that just won me the game, and Tommy told me that leading Lilligant and Torkoal was safer than that. And so I did. And I mean, I missed Sleep Powder game 1, so I feel like that's one of the reasons I lost. But then game 2, if you saw, I led the Lilligant Snorlax, which is super weird. But that was the lead that I thought of, because when you look at Javier's team, he only has Ninetales and Garchomp and Lele that are faster than Lilligant without Sun. And I didn't think that he would want to lead any of those. So when he led Arcanine Muck versus the Lilligant Snorlax, I figured it was exactly what I wanted. And I just, I was just going for getting a Sleep Powder off of 1 and then belly drumming. And that was like my optimal situation for game 2.
Honestly, when I saw that lead in game 2, the Lilligant Snorlax lead, I was thinking, like, what is Ashton doing? Like, this is not a lead that his team has. That's not an option. Like, just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
But obviously you seem to have thought it through a lot more, and yeah, your plan was to use Lilligant, kind of like how people use like Smeargle to get off a fast sleep to allow Snorlax to set up, and then go from there. And so I think that was a really interesting and unique way to tackle the finals, using a combo of Pokemon that people hadn't really thought of doing before.
Yeah, I feel like when you look at my team, right, it looks like it's just 3 cores thrown together. And, I mean, even though they weren't designed to be like that, they still do kind of work. Because, the Pheromosa and Lele, especially, people are always like, oh, it's a really popular core that people use. And I honestly I put the Lele on so that I could sleep powder and get rid of other people's terrains. And the Pheromosa was just for the coverage, like I was saying earlier. And so, the team was originally actually designed to not always need 2 pairs like that. But usually they just were good options, really.
Yeah. And so, I guess we haven't really talked about the very scary Game 3, but if you wanted to, tell us how that felt for you, we would love to hear it.
Oh, so, the Game 3, and I'm sure the moment we're thinking of is the double crit. And I know that it looked like those crits were very, very important. And I mean, they were. They definitely made it so that I automatically won in that situation. But after doing damage calcs and whatnot, the Shadow Claw was a roll in my favor, and so was the higher horsepower. But the crits just obviously sealed up the game pretty well.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people realized that it was really only 1 crit, because like one of the other crits didn't matter. I don't think it was.
Yeah,
I think it might have been the Shadow Claw, or
well, the Shadow Claw was it was like it had like an 80% chance to do it KO. And it did like just above half, the last one. So it was pretty good chance to kill. And the high horsepower was also, I think, from where it was, because someone posted a calc on Twitter, right? And they gave his Arcanine too much HP and my Snorlax too little attack. So I kind of just shrugged that off. But I think it was fairly close to KOing at that point, because he was at about 65 and I have a decent amount of attack in my Snorlax. So I think it was either guaranteed to kill or pretty close.
And, not everyone considers that, we play a game with luck in it. Like you had said, you lost you missed sleep powder in game 1, and that was a big factor in you losing. And you were using Shadow Claw on Mimikyu, and while that is the go-to ghost move on Mimikyu, it does have a high critical hit ratio, and so using it 2 times, you're looking at about like a 20% critical hit chance, and so it's not unheard of to get a crit. Over the course of those 2 hits.
Yeah, and I mean, it was basically like a 50% chance to do a KO, and then it was that extra bonus chance to get the critical hit. So I feel like it was, if not more, in my favor.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
So I don't feel too bad, because it was basically a 50-50. So I don't feel too bad about that. A lot of things are 50-50s in those situations.
Yeah, very true.
How did it feel to win, though?
Oh gosh, when I saw that I had the Snorlax in front of his remaining Pokemon, it was crazy, because in my head I was like, okay, I won, that's it. Like, there's no way I lose this. And then I told myself, I was like, no, you can't, don't think that. There's totally a way you could lose this. And it was so crazy. I've never won a regional before. I'm not sure if that's common knowledge, but I've never won a regional. But now I've won an international, which is kind of weird. But I couldn't really comprehend that I had gotten this far and was about to potentially win my first event. And it was more surreal than anything else. Just being able to see all the people who also probably could see at that point that I was going to win. And then especially once I picked up the final KO, it was crazy. I really didn't know what to think. And I still don't know what to think, because it's like, I'm a national champion. That's such a title.
Yeah, it's very crazy to think about. You're joining the ranks of everyone else who's ascended to reach that title, and very cool to see that, I think. Still very well deserved. Ashton's, you're a very good player, despite a lot of people criticizing some of your Pokemon choices. Very commonly, I'd say.
Yeah. I mean, that's to come with using unorthodox things, but that's whatever. I'll continue to use what I like to use, and they can say whatever they want. But if I keep doing well at events, I don't care what they say.
So, do you feel like you've locked up a day 2 invite to Worlds?
Was that top 8? Before
I think it's. What do you know it, Steven?
Yeah, it's a top 8 at the end of the season.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like I want to say yes, but I can't be too sure. But if 8 other people have more than 1,164 CP by the end of the season, I would be I would be honestly surprised.
Yeah. So that must feel pretty cool.
It'd be pretty shocking. We can work out the numbers and maybe talk about it on the show in the future date. But yeah. Anything else you want to say about Latin America before we talk about the world's qualification adjustment?
No, I think that's about it. I just think that I'd want to say to anyone who's thinking about using my team, just know that you do have to hit your sleep powders. And I know if you don't like running teams where hitting a sleep powder is your win condition, it's probably not the team for you. But if you're okay with that, I think it's a very solid team, and it's a lot of fun to use.
Yeah, and you, like you were mentioning to me beforehand, you said that this was just the team to bring to Latin America.
Yeah, it was a good call. I mean, I'm sure you know, even really good players like Marcus were not prepared for Sun, especially Sun paired with another very obnoxious duo in the form of Mimikyu Snorlax.
Very cool. So yeah, I guess now we can talk about some more recent news, since it has been almost a month, not that long, I don't think, but it's been a bit of time since Latin America has happened, and so more recently we got a bit of news about the world qualification bar being adjusted for certain regions and age divisions. So if you wanted to go ahead and detail that a bit, Steven, I'd be happy to talk about it.
Sure thing. So this announcement came within the first week of May, and really what happened was TPCI, essentially just adjusted all the bars for qualification for Worlds for this season, and really had a big impact for TCGI here. Not as much for us in terms of actual CP payout distributions. None of that changed. I looked through the tables, asked around, nothing affected us there. But essentially, every division for the senior and junior divisions in every rating zone, all of their bars went down a bit. Whether it's 50 points, 150 points, somewhere around there. But for Masters division, which is mainly what we're going to focus on here, is Europe's went down from 500 to 400, Asia Pacific's from 400 to 300, South Africa from 300 to 200, and then North America and Latin America did not change. North America stayed at 500, Latin America stayed at 400 points for qualification. So I think this is very odd timing for this announcement, and as of May 10th, I looked through all the leaderboards just to check, how many Masters we have qualified for Worlds right now. We're at close to about 70 with these new adjusted qualification levels. So that's including, all these rating zones I've seen, as well as the players from Korea who just had their nationals over the weekend. And I think this gives us close to a total of about 70 now. So World is, around the usual size it has been in years before 2016. Where we had the crazy low bars for that season. But CP did not change. The bars did. This announcement was late in May. So first off, why don't we just talk about why do we think this announcement was made? Why was it so late? And why weren't these values in place originally? Why do you think they're so high to start with?
I've some of that. I think I'm not sure why they made the bars so high originally for certain countries. And I feel like I don't have the exact values in front of me, but I know some of them are pretty low. But I know that some places definitely do not have enough events to hit some of the kind of high bars that they are given. Especially considering that some places don't have enough events to get to the 500 mark. I know even in the US where we have, say, like 12 regionals that you can go to on different weekends, it's hard to reach 500 still. But I feel like with the okay, I see it. I see the page now. The South Africa one where they have 200 CP to qualify for Worlds. I feel like that's justifiable because do they even have their own internets?
No.
No, we only have the 4 major rating zones with 4 internets. Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like that's if you win a regional, 200 points, you're at a guaranteed invite, which I feel like that's pretty good. And I feel like the ones that did not change, like Latin America and North America, I feel like those are okay. The 500 and 400 are pretty good. The other one I don't really understand is the European one from 500 to 400, but I guess if they think it's the right decision, that's up to them.
Yeah, I mean, if you've seen what the Europeans have been saying, a lot of them have complained about their circuit just not having enough events, and so the 500 bar was just kind of hard to reach. And a big factor was, their international being at the beginning of the season when things are a little bit more volatile and not as steady considering the format. And so, with the biggest event of the season happening right at the beginning, the rest of the season, what are you really looking forward to? Maybe small regionals or special events, but those aren't going to be the ones that carry you or, get you those end goal points to your Worlds invite. And so the rest of the season is going to look like a real grind, just going to a lot of different events. And so it was definitely really different for Europe this year because of that. They normally have a couple of national events, and instead, they were downgraded to one. And especially at the beginning of the season, it made things a lot more different, and a lot harder for them to get the points that they normally have to go for. So I think the drop of 100 points was definitely justified. But coming at this point in the season, it's still really hurtful because, if people had known this at the beginning of the season, it would have changed things drastically. They would have known that, they had 100 points less to aim for. And so they could have planned accordingly to travel out to different events or to, maybe not travel to different events because they knew that they could reach it with the certain level of the certain number of events. And so I definitely think it was a good change, but being so late in the season means it might not be as impactful as it could have been.
So I feel like almost for Europe, this is kind of it's a mercy rule thing. Your international was early, and you guys, and they did not have as many events as say North America does. So that's why their bar was dropped by 100 points. So the decision here to make this announcement and essentially just shuffle everything up and lower the bars for these different rating zones, I'm actually okay with where the new bars are at. I have no problem with that. Really, the big issue here is the timing. I really wish these bars were either set at the very beginning of the season and held throughout the year, or rather, I would have wished they'd just kept the original values where they are now and just let that roll over into next season, because I don't like how, despite the website saying all these values are subject to change, you can see that everywhere under every table they have. I still wish, it kind of shows there's a chink in the armor of TPCI that if you cry and complain enough with well-reasoned arguments, you can get something changed. I'm glad nothing about formats have changed before. Remember how we asked about removing Dark Void Smeargle last season and that didn't happen?
Yeah.
Hey, I still wish it happened.
I'm glad it didn't, but for the points now, in terms of the circuit, I still, look, this is month 9 out of 12 of the season. And if you consider September to August, one season for a VGC season. And this is just too late for some people, where I guess with the exception of Latin America, because their bar didn't change, for both Europe and the Asia Pacific areas, a lot of people after that international happened, they know there aren't many events left for them to get to locally. And, they just kind of hang up the towel, and they don't need to worry about this season anymore because either the bar is unattainable at this point or they stop trying, and then all of a sudden this announcement happens. I understand why a lot of people are going to be upset over this change because it was so late. The values are okay with me. I really hate this timing, and I really hate just this lack of consistency really throughout this whole season with the announcements.
Well, I want to talk about your the one point that you brought up about how crying, complaining enough could make changes happen, and you don't like seeing that. But I feel like that might just be the veteran Steven who's been playing Pokemon since 2005, who's dealt with all the changes or dealt with every thing that Pokemon has thrown at you, or TPCI. But I think it's good, even if this is like for the wrong reasons, crying and complaining. I want them to listen to our like criticism and feedback. Like the players should, have a voice. They should have a way to voice their complaints. The complaint this time being about the championship point bars being too high. And I don't know. I think like the one main instance I can think of in the past was at the beginning of 2016. The point payouts looked really wonky, and after enough complaining and talking to them, they ended up changing them right away before any events had actually happened. But it was I think it was a step in the right direction. Just if something's wrong and we say to them that this is wrong, I feel like them making changes is a good thing for us.
Right, but you had just said they made that change right away. Like that was literally a week or two right after those values came out, and they were fixed immediately at the beginning of the season before anything else happened.
So is that why you're drawing comparisons to the Dark Void debacle from last season? Because that would have been a mid-season change?
Yeah, I guess last season we had best of 1 switch to best of 3, which was all around positive here.
Oh, and so now that's okay? That's okay as long as it's a good change? That could change in the middle of the season, huh, Steven?
That was fine. This is also a good change if depending on your region, I guess, but I just don't like this timing with in terms of the circuit and the construction of it. And I wish they really would have just held out for the last 3 months and then adjusted things for next season. I don't know. Doesn't look really professional to me.
All right. Well, I definitely want to hear from Ashton. We just keep yelling at each other, so we need a third opinion.
Yeah, well, I kind of agree with all that. Like, I feel like it is kind of not professional in a sense, but it was also kind of not professional how they set up everything at the beginning.
My theory about that is they'd probably been in communication with all these TOs around the world saying, oh, we're going to have this many, regionals and other events to hold here. And maybe a lot of those plans ended up falling through or for whatever reason. And maybe that's why the bars were initially set so high. Maybe they did not, or maybe they again heard the complaints from the people saying Worlds was too easy to qualify for the previous season. And they wanted to, adjust that to say, hey, you guys want this to be harder? Here you go. I feel like with what the values are now, relative to your event, what is it? Disparity, I guess, or event.
I'm not sure exactly.
I know what you're trying to say. I don't know the right word for it.
Yeah, Ashton and I.
The number of events each rating zone has
Yeah.
is can kind of relate to what your bar is set at, and it can. I guess now it seems more attainable. I wish these values were here in the beginning. It's weird to me.
I think it's funny how last year people were like, no, getting to Worlds is too easy, fix it. And then the second they released the new stuff, people are like, wait, not like that, a little lower. And so
now it's too hard.
Yeah. So
we're just being Goldilocks.
I'm not sure. Yeah, no, I'm not sure if the real problem is the CP bar or if people will ever really be happy with where the bar is. Because I know a lot of the older players, like, we used to have it where it was just a certain number of who was the highest, who was in the top 16 of CP at the time. Didn't matter how much you had, but it was where you were. And so
yeah, that was like a push till the end of the season.
Giving a certain number that you have to pass, I don't feel like people are ever really going to be happy with where it is.
Mm-hmm. And it's always going to be, this is a variable number of people making it to Worlds, where in those past years it was a set number of people. They had 40 Americans, 16 Americans, however many. Whereas now it's however many people can reach that bar. One thing that I wanted to bring up, though, is for Europe, since this bar was dropped by 100 points, I think they really only have one more regional over there coming up. And I'm thinking, I'm wondering what are the attendance numbers going to be at that, considering, this bar drop and now Worlds looks like a lot more possible for people. Is it going to have, a huge attendance or what? Because, while this bar was changed, they don't have a whole lot of time to act on it and change things. It's only going to really affect those people that have already reached 400.
Oh, yeah, I feel like, well, maybe some people who are closer. Maybe if before you were at like 360 and you were like, oh man, no, there's no way I'm getting 500, and now gives you a push to go to regionals because now you can reach the 400 goal that you now have set for you.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely going to change things for a lot of people, and I do think it's a positive change. Obviously, the timing is poor, and knowing it at this point of the season, it's not going to be making a huge impact, but I still think it was a good thing to do because otherwise we wouldn't have had very many Europeans making it to Worlds.
So I guess, yeah, it is what it is. They'll get a small boost in attendance because of this announcement. The goal seems more attainable for people at this point in the season. And what this also could do is perhaps convince others, more players to come to the North American International, which is a perfect segue into talking about, we just had a big announcement about, registration and the timing and what the structure of the event's going to look like. So I guess this isn't really a big surprise or anything, but there's a big whopping registration fee for this one. And not only that, for spectators as well. We have a $60 entry fee for masters, $45 for juniors and seniors. And this is, I don't know if spectators had to pay for the other internationals, but we have $15 and $10 depending on your age if you're older or younger than 16 years old. That's kind of new to me. But, you got entry fees for all that. You get like a bunch of participation prizes for coming to the international. So, guys, just any opinions about that event coming up?
I think that, first of all, that number is, in most competitive gaming communities, that is a reasonable number. Like, I know I've been to a few Smash events where just to get into the venue is like $40 plus your playing in the tournament fee. And so I know that to us, this is a new concept, and most people are used to the lower numbers, especially anyone who's been in the format for more than 2 or 3 years knows that it definitely was not $60. But I do feel like even though the number is pretty high and we all do not want to pay it, I feel like it's a step in the right direction because maybe now Pokemon could have better price support or more stipends or something along that line.
I gotta say, I think that $60, while it is a tad high, and we've seen a drastic increase over the past couple of years, considering I believe in the past it was free to play at Nationals. I think in my first year in 2014.
Yeah. I was thinking that. I wasn't sure if I was right, though.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was free, and you would just show up and play it, and obviously free for spectators, too. Whereas now we're paying $60 and $15 just to spectate. I gotta say that, we've seen this coming with entry fees increasing and increasing and increasing. So the $60 isn't a huge shock, and I, as a serious competitor, I will pay it, and I don't mind paying it because I know playing Pokemon and traveling around has its cost. Adding $60 more to it is just maybe an extra day at a hotel or something to some people. And however, I am really bummed by the $15 spectator fee because, they really want to draw in as many people as possible. And this is really going to put off some people. I know some people were considering, going to Nationals just to watch and not play because, considering the bar this year, for some people, Worlds just doesn't seem very possible. And so they wanted to just, go to it because it's a kind of like a fun Pokemon convention. That's how it was back when I started in 2014. Just going there and hanging out was a good time. However, paying $15 to get in, it's not a huge number, and so it's not going to put off everyone. But it is going to make a bit of a difference in the attendance numbers in terms of people that are there just to spectate, and also for those playing. For the more casual people, people just showing up to Nationals and playing, not really with an intent to win it or with an intent to get championship points. They just are going to the American Pokemon tournament just to play, and it's going to put off a lot of people. And so I think attendance is going to be smaller than what we've been seeing.
Yeah, I could definitely see attendance being smaller. What was it? I want to ask you guys a question. If you could double check me, was last year the first season we ever paid for Nationals? Do you remember?
I don't remember. Did we pay last year for? Oh wait, 2016.
I think I want to say yes because I don't think we paid in 2015.
I don't think so. I don't think we paid in 2015. Yeah.
Okay. So, this being our second year with this major fee to get into playing in the tournament, you know, I'm fine with the value. You know, while it's a little high, I'm as most of us would be hardcore players. I feel like we're still gonna be willing to pay for that to get into the international. You know, it's a big tournament, big CP payout. One of the most important tournaments of the year. But do you feel like competitive Pokemon is ready for this at this point?
I feel like back on that note of a lot of people just showing up to the U.S. internets. I know a lot of people who, like you said, would just go to U.S. internets just to be there and to play in the event, not to win, but just to have the experience of playing at such a high level and maybe getting to play against the other high level players that they've seen on other streams or whatnot. But I do feel like, in a sense, Pokemon is kind of driving away those people who would do that sort of thing. And also, what was I going to say? I also feel like if the money, like $60, was any higher, I feel like it would just be outrageous. Whereas right now, it's maybe I can kind of see that number.
What I want to say is, like, for me personally, I'm going obviously as a competitive player to play, and so I'm fine with paying the $60. But I'm bringing with one friend who is a casual VGC player who doesn't have a lot of events near him and has never really tried to make it to Worlds or anything or really winning events. But he always comes with me to nationals to play, and this is going to be off-putting for him because this is one of the few events that he goes to every year, and he has to pay $60 just to play in it. And then I'll also be bringing with me 2 spectators, and so that's just going to be like a real bummer because like $15 for each of them just to come and watch and hang out, and otherwise they can't get in without paying that $15. So it is a bit of a bummer. And in response to Steven's question, is Pokemon really ready for this? I don't think so, because like if with increasing entry fees, you should expect like maybe an increase in people attending tournaments, and we haven't really seen huge evidence for that. We saw a pretty decent attendance in London, but other than that, I don't know. Events haven't been much bigger than they have been in past years. Like I think we saw how many Masters in Virginia? We saw like 178, and so they're looking a lot like maybe like the last year or the year before that, and so we're not seeing big increases in attendance for the video game championships, and so I really don't think it's called for yet. This could maybe happen if we saw a lot more players and they wanted to make the game more competitive and with a lot more on the line, but I don't think we're ready for it yet.
Yeah,
Definitely with you on that. I feel like for some of the players who've been playing a long time and have had free events for a good majority of their competitive Pokemon careers, I guess this is just us paying our dues at this point.
Yeah, how many tournaments have you gotten to play for free, Steven?
I have no idea.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no way I'd be able to count that.
But you also had to deal with things like the lottery system and other things like that. Not non-Swiss tournaments.
Yeah, those non-Swiss tournaments were terrible.
Could you imagine paying
times
for a tournament that was not Swiss? You could just get eliminated round 1.
Oh man, no, I would definitely not pay for that.
A lot of the fighting games are playing pools or at least double elimination, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, double elimination I can see. Double elimination is perfectly okay. But when you're playing in a tournament you paid $60 for, and you get eliminated because of one rock slide flinch, I would not be happy.
Even with best of 3, it would still not be excusable, in my opinion. You need to at least have a bit more leeway than that.
Yeah, I think the only time that's really an acceptable format, so to say, would be if they ever did an LCQ again. I think the only way to run that is single elimination.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very true. I'd agree with that. But I'm also going to add on to that, we're never going to see an LCQ again. There's no way. There's no way.
Why do you think no? I actually don't have a lot of experience with LCQs because I've never been to one, and I came around when, I think they had their very last one. So I want to hear what your thoughts are.
Well, with the CP bar, there's just no reason for it anymore.
Okay.
And they eradicated it before we even got the bar for VGC. We just had in 2015 it was gone. And that was still just the top 40 system or top X system to get in. And I I never really saw the LC. It was also obviously a great way to get more players to attend the events. From 2000, what was it, 10 to 14? They had the LCQ. I don't know if 2009 had an LCQ.
Yeah, I'm not sure when it
I
started.
don't think they did.
It's a cool concept, though. Like you said, you get more people to attend Worlds, just on the premise that, hey, I could maybe make it into this thing.
Yeah, see, I think that when they had the LCQ, they were on the right path, trying to get more players in and increase the numbers and have more spectators, which I feel like the way you grow a game is having spectators, but not making them pay for it. I don't know. I kind of disagree with that. But now that they're making it so, like, I didn't go to last year's Worlds, but wasn't there, like, no room for spectators or something?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, like, I think they're going in the wrong direction with that one, at least for Worlds. I mean, I don't say that they should definitely have the LCQ back, but I think that they should at least have an easier way to spectate or something, because they went in the wrong direction with that.
Yeah, well, anyway, that's LCQ's gone. I don't think it's coming back.
Yeah.
Never really seemed at looking back now, it never really seemed professional after everyone had to play through a season like that and then go through the LCQ the day before Worlds and hey, you're in Worlds now. And I guess with the spectator fees for this international specifically, it seems like they're just trying to increase the prestige of competitive Pokemon just a little bit more. Just saying, oh, look at all these people going in to pay to just watch this and pay to compete in this. It's starting to. I don't know. It seems like the prestige could go up a little bit just from that, from an outsider's perspective, perhaps.
I know, but just thinking about it, like people like, oh, look at these people playing to watch Pokemon. It just, I don't know. It just sounds silly at the point we're at now because I don't think Pokemon is competitive enough to be like when I think of like that, I think of like League of Legends or Smash Bros and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, those are like the serious competitive games, and we're not quite ready. I don't think, like I said earlier. Another thing I wanted to mention about the entry fee prices is, I know in Masters we're getting like 3 packs of TCG cards, and I think spectators, do they get cards too?
Yeah, I think so.
It's almost like they're like forcing us to just pay for some cards, like because. I would definitely be fine with a like $40 entry fee and just no TCG cards. Like, don't force your cards on me, man. Like, because if you look at it, part of the entry fee is just like a forced trading card game transaction.
Yeah, you get the card packs, you get the badge and competitive lanyard. I think there's some other stuff, maybe a hat, probably.
I mean,
yeah, but some of that stuff's more like fun memorabilia, whereas like the cards are they're forcing cards on us.
Yeah. What is it? In Brazil, I think it was 50 Brazilian. No, it wasn't 50 Brazilian. That's way too much. I remember 50 US or something. But all we got was like a hat, card sleeves, card box, and then a lanyard. And I was like, this is not what I wanted out of this event.
How many cards did you get?
No, we got card sleeves.
Oh, you got card sleeves, yeah.
Card sleeves, a box for them, and then a hat. And the hat was cool. It's a cool hat, trying to this season. But
were you able to get your Worlds bag or no from 2016 or no?
No. I had to go there, so I didn't go.
Yeah. You said you didn't go, so I was wondering if you had someone like sneak in and get it for you or something.
Yeah, I wish. I just got a Pikachu, but
okay, gotcha.
Very cool. Okay, and lastly, we have a question from Babaloo, and Babaloo asks. Hey there, guys. I'm a new listener to your podcast, and I would like some help with VGC team building. I was wondering exactly how you choose the Pokemon you put on your team. I understand that you start with a core trio and then cover your weaknesses and prepare for Pokemon that are highly used in the meta. My question is what type of Mons to choose. As an example, do you pick a sweeper, a tank, one support? Basically, I just want to know which roles I need on my team as opposed to which types. Thanks for your time. Thanks, Babaloo, for the question. So, essentially, this person is really just asking about how do you go about team building? Do you do this method where you pick out specific Pokemon for, I need to have a sweeper, I need to have a tank, I need to have a support Pokemon, or do you team build in a different way?
I thought about this question for a bit after seeing it, and I feel like my first and foremost thought about this question is, it's not really about making one Pokemon on your team, a sweeper or a tank or a support or whatnot. It's really more or less the whole team in general. Like, there are teams that are more hyper offense. Like, if you see a team that is Rain, Hermosa, Lele, stuff like that, you go, oh, that's a hyper offense team. And you can have filler Pokemon that are a sweeper or something more bulky that would be the Pokemon that you would throw on to cover the weaknesses. But I feel like if you start your team building around just throwing one of each and dabbling a bit in everything, your team's going to be more of good Pokemon rather than a team. So I feel like you should look for synergy more than synergy in the Pokemon, whether it be offensive synergy or defensive synergy, rather than just having an offensive Pokemon or a defensive Pokemon.
Yeah, I think a good way to start, like, in this format is, just find an idea. What do you want to use? Like, because you can almost make, you can make a lot of different things work in this format as long as you're willing to use anything. Like, if you pick something really weird, like, say you wanted to use a very uncommon Pokemon or something, like maybe an odd strategy like Porygon Z or something like that, then you have to be willing to use the more standard Pokemon to support that. Something like Tapu Koko to set terrain, or maybe a Trick Room setter and stuff like that. You have to be willing to use more common Pokemon, I would say. And it's not about so much about the roles as it is, just being ready to beat what you're expecting to face. Prepare for the meta, I would say, is probably the bigger deal and bigger takeaway. The person asking in the question did say prepare for Pokemon that are highly used in the meta, and I think that's probably the most important thing is, find Pokemon that are going to work and going to be able to function against what you commonly see. If you play to beat those teams, generally you're going to have success. And like Ashton said, the team has to have good synergy. It's not about picking one of each role, one sweeper, one wall, one whatever. It's all about, finding Pokemon that work well together.
Right. In terms of the construction of teams, I definitely agree with both of you guys about what you said, and how essentially there's really no need to, in the construction of a team, to classify roles before you actually make the team. You don't have to look for those specific types of Pokemon just to fit on the team. I think once the team is complete and you've been using it for a while, then you kind of pick out and realize, oh, these are the Pokemon that are going to be my high offense. They're going to be the ones taking most of the KOs here, and I want to protect them in that sense. And then, there are other ones who fit the different roles, but I wouldn't necessarily have to I wouldn't want to classify looking for those specific types in the beginning when I'm building a team. But again, go with synergy and go with Pokemon that will be able to beat the common ones, the highly used Pokemon in any metagame you're playing. But hoping that's what you were looking for. But anyway, thank you so much for the question, for the submission. It helps us a lot with just getting to talk about some other things that we don't necessarily plan on. So that's very cool. Thanks again to Babaloo. Appreciate the question. And feedback from everyone else we've gotten either at regionals or through social media. Thank you guys. It really means a lot. Lastly, I think that's a wrap for the show. Thank you so much to Ashton for being on. Huge honor to have a recent international champion on here.
No, thank you for having me here. This was really cool. Definitely a very good interaction with you guys today.
Thank you. Your time is very much appreciated being on this show. And other than that, I guess we will close out here, where you guys can find us on iTunes. Leave us a review there. We also have an email where you can send us feedback or your questions. That is vgchypervoice@gmail.com. Lastly, we're all on Twitter. You can also send us feedback or questions for the show there. That is perfectly fine. And Ashton, where can people follow you on Twitter?
You can follow me on Twitter at LinkYoshiMario, like the 3 Nintendo characters.
Perfect. And Alex, people can follow you at
Lexicon VGC. And Steven, we can follow you at?
I am at Super Morioka. And Ashton, one last question quickly. Which is your favorite of the 3?
We have the 3 what?
The Nintendo characters.
Of Link, Yoshi, or Mario.
I gotta say Link. Link's my favorite. That's why he's in the front.
Yes.
Good choice.
Oh, that's why your in-game name's AV Link.
Yeah.
What's the AV for?
The AV actually is my grade school's motto for our sports teams and whatnot. It stands for always victorious, and I told them I would take it with me if I ever became big at Pokemon, so I have it on my tag right now.
Oh.
Wow, I didn't realize there was a whole story behind it. That's really cool.
Everyone thinks it's a salt vest.
That is
Assault vest.
that is super cool. I always thought it was a salt vest, but always victorious. Link, Ashton Cox. Thanks for being on. You guys just heard our Twitter handles. Thank you so much for listening to the show. We hope you guys enjoyed it, and stay tuned for more. See you next time.